which the United Nations and Western powers say backs AFC M23, an allegation Kigali denies. The Qatari Foreign Ministry says Congo and the M23 had agreed on detailed terms of reference for the ceasefire monitoring mechanism created under an agreement reached in October and reaffirmed their commitments under the broader peace deal framework signed in November.
Guinea's President Mamadi Doumbouya, who came to power in a coup and was sworn in for a 7th-year term last month, has retained his mine minister, but appointed the new ministers of Finance, Justice and Security as part of his government. The former Special Forces commander, thought to be in his early 40s, has been leading the West African nation since seizing power in 2021 and read the decree on state television. Ibrahim Asori Tunkara, who acted as a judge during a trial for a 2009 stadium massacre that killed more than 150 people, was appointed the Justice Minister. Doumbouya won the presidential election that completed the return to civilian rule. A Ugandan court has dropped a case against the first man in the country to be charged with aggravated homosexuality, which carries the death penalty under an anti-gay law. The East African country enacted the Anti-Homosexuality Act in 2023, defying pressure from Western governments as well as local and international rights groups. Described as one of the world's harshest laws targeting the LGBTQI community, it carries a sentence of life in prison for same-sex intercourse and imposes the death penalty in cases that are deemed aggravated. Political analysts say the exit of South Africa's Democratic Alliance Party leader John Steenhuisen from the party's leadership race could be a turning point for the DA. Steenhuisen is set to make an announcement tomorrow that he will not be standing in for re-election after 6 years at the helm of the DA. Political analyst Sandy Leswana has welcomed the reported developments, citing a string of controversies that have followed Steenhuisen even before he rose to the party's top position. Ukraine has suffered another night of heavy bombardment as Russia again targeted energy infrastructure in Kyiv and several other regions, including Kharkiv and Odessa. President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Moscow of using the coldest day of winter to terrorize people as temperatures dropped below minus 20 degrees Celsius. The U.S. President Donald Trump had urged Russia to stop striking Ukraine's energy grid for a week during the current freezing weather. But Moscow said that it ended on Sunday. Residents of affected areas in Kyiv have been expressing their frustration.
They keep saying there will be an energy ceasefire. Where is the ceasefire? At first, they said it will last for a week, then 3 days. And now, well, they have hit us hard. What should people do now? Where should they live?
There is always hope. Everybody hopes that maybe the situation will get better, that the war will end. But no, there is nothing like this in the foreseeable future. The Russians use this weather to target the civilian population.
Recapping on your top stories, the United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo will send its first team to monitor a ceasefire between Congo's government and the AFC M23 rebel group in the coming days. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Karim Benzema joins Al Hilal on a free deal, while Ademola Lookman joins Atletico Madrid. I'll tell you more on these transfer news at the bottom of the hour.
Business, trade, and investment opportunities that put the continent first. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni.
All right, it's 4 p.m. Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Innocent Semosa, standing in for Tami Ngobeni. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Now, coming up on this hour, Ethiopia's economic outlook projected to be at 10.2% in the 2025-2026 fiscal year. And Dangote Group secures expanded gas supply agreements with Nigeria's National Petroleum Company Limited. You can also join the conversation by finding us on X at Channel Africa #1, Facebook at Channel Africa, and on Instagram at Channel Africa 1. You can also subscribe on our YouTube at Channel Africa 1. It's exactly at 16:07 Central African Time.
6 decades strong, Channel Africa continues to inspire Africa and the world, proudly sharing
the African perspective.
All right, on to this story now. There are rising tensions in Malawi between the government and private maize traders. This is because of falling domestic maize prices, which are pushing traders to defy the export ban in search of better returns on regional markets. Now, the ban by the authorities was meant to ensure that Malawians have access to low maize price. As George Mango reports from Blantyre, various traders say they are selling their maize at a loss locally, unlike in foreign neighboring countries. Take a listen.
What is clear is that market sources report that maize is being illegally exported to neighboring countries such as Mozambique, Kenya, and Rwanda via Tanzania, while grain supplies continue to flow to Zambia, Malawi's traditional market. In fact, this is happening despite Malawi recently importing about 200,000 tons of maize from Zambia to cover a domestic shortfall identified by the authorities in October last year. Various analysts and civil society representatives, including consumer rights campaigners like Jean Kasunda, think grain traders have the right to export their produce for profits.
The private traders are left with no option other than to defy government's ban on export of maize. This is so because government, in the first place, failed to buy maize from them. Instead, they went to import maize from Zambia, which was very bad. Secondly, they called for local traders to sell their maize to NFRA, but they only bought a portion of the maize. And then they stopped, saying they don't have money. Now, where do these people going to sell their maize? And remember, last farming season, production costs were very high because inputs, especially fertilizer, the prices were very high.
However, Malawi authorities have reiterated their commitment to strictly enforce the export ban, citing the need to safeguard national food security. 2 weeks ago, authorities seized 3 trucks carrying a total of 90 tons of maize that were being smuggled into Tanzania through unofficial routes in the border district of Mchinji. Some citizens are, however, happy with the maize export ban. Brave Mwenda is one such citizen.
We are currently facing food shortages because of some climatic change and also flooding and also El Nino, which hit the country over the past few years. So now, in addition to the food shortage situation, the maize which is available on the market has increased so that most of us, we can't afford to buy. The prices are high at unaffordable prices which we cannot able to buy. So I wish this maize could have arrived in the country sooner than later, because otherwise we will die of hunger.
That aside, the Grain Traders Association of Malawi has since criticized the lack of government maize purchases on the local market. The association argues that without budgetary funding, traders are left with limited options. President of the association, Grace Mijiga Mohango, said meaningful state purchases are unlikely before the national budget is approved, making exports, despite their risks, one of the few ways for traders to avoid losses. Recently, Mohango also wondered at the decision by some other players to start importing maize.
They would have engaged the private sector for two simple reasons. One, it's the logistics. Secondly, it's the financing. It's almost impossible.
Traders and maize consumers who still think maize is a stable food crop in Malawi call for a more flexible approach and regulated exports once national food requirements are assessed, potentially through a quota-based permit system. Other players suggest promoting maize processing into flour or animal feed, while warning that the prevalence of informal trade makes enforcement of the export ban increasingly difficult. George Muhango, Channel Africa News Planter.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
All right, let's look at this story now. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has focused that the country's economy will grow by 10.2% in the 2025-2026 fiscal year, surpassing the 8.9% growth projected by the Finance Ministry in June last year. Now, Abiy says the revised outlook is based on economic performance over the past 6 months. For more on this, we're now joined on the line by Dr. Konstantinos Behutesfa, a former UN Senior Economic Policy Advisor in New York and chair of the AU Anti-Corruption Board in Addis, as well as professor of Public Policy and Sustainable Institutional Reforms. Thank you so very much, Doc, for making the time. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has revised the country's economic growth. This, of course, is to 10.2%. What could have led to the revised outlook from 8.9% to 10.2%? And how realistic is it, given Ethiopia's recent economic challenges, Doc?
Well, the Ethiopian economy has a lot of challenge. And despite this challenge, we have internal conflicts, illicit financial flows, illicit trade. But despite that, the country has been showing remarkable progress. I understand the IMF and others have put the number much lower. But definitely recently we started in investment, especially in tourism, in the natural gas sector, and in the mining sector, especially gold. I think has given hope to the government that will be growing about 10%. Of course, that's something to be seen, and GDP figures are always contested by different institutions. But we have the national statistics, often government institutions are putting up these numbers, and therefore I believe we must be talking from that point of view.
Yeah, Dr. Behutesfa, then talk to us about some of the sectors. I hear you're talking about the issues of mining, but which sectors are expected to drive this growth?
Excuse me, can you repeat the question? It's very difficult to hear.
Which sectors are expected to drive this growth, this 10.2 projected growth?
Well, I think it's a combination of sectors, the introduction of mechanized agriculture, mining, especially gold mining and other minerals, and some precious stones. And of course, the recent investments in natural gas in the Somali region of Ethiopia, and the development of commodity exports, because the Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration has said, for example, that the 6-month export has grown by almost 100%. So this shows that this might give the government some kind of inkling that the economy will grow at a double digit. Of course, the Ethiopian economy has been growing at double digits between 2010 and 2020. The Financial Times said that Ethiopia is the fastest growing economy of the decade. So with the challenge I mentioned earlier behind us, peacemaking, control over illicit trading, illicit financial flows, and to some degree control of corruption, would definitely must be in the mind of the government to be able to get this kind of growth. But definitely the main sectors for this are agricultural growth, which is also supplemented now by 20 industrial parks that are going to process commodities for exports, the introduction of capital markets, the introduction of foreign banks for operating in Ethiopia, which has not been the case for the last couple of centuries. And therefore, all this is a combination of what gives the government some kind of a positive signal that it's going to go double digit.
Yeah, indeed, Doc, you're quite spot on. In fact, the challenge of illicit financial flows and corruption has been a long-standing issue in the continent, has it not? Then I'm keen to find out from you how important, Doc, are mega projects and state-led infrastructure spending, such as, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the Dangote fertilizers plant in the country being able to hit the 10.2% target?
Yeah, there are big projects going on in Ethiopia now. The Grand Renaissance Dam has been completed, of course, which is going to produce more than 5,000 megawatts of electricity. But we have other dams that are being completed now. The Koisha Dam, which is near the Kenyan border, which will be producing more than 2,000 megawatts. We have the wind energy that was inaugurated very recently. And now Dangote and Ethiopian Investment Holding are installing the fertilizer plant, which is going to replace tremendous amount of imports that's costing billions for Ethiopia in terms of fertilizer imports. And the gas production in the same place will be also replacing imports in terms of natural gas that we're importing, liquefied natural gas. And there are also other mega projects like a 100,000 hectare coffee park. Ethiopia is known for its coffee exports. And this is going to be times Arabica coffee that's being planted in this 100,000 hectares. It's a combination of small farmers, mechanized agriculture, and the domestic and foreign investors. So one concern that I have is the lack of fish in some of the regions, especially in areas of Oromia, the Amara region and Tigray. So with a prospect of making peace, especially having the elections coming up in later this year, the government must make very serious efforts at bringing peace, which will bring out an economic development that of course the projected double-digit growth.
Yeah, Dr. Beutasfa, just before I let you go, what needs to happen then for Ethiopia to sustain double digits growth beyond 2026?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What needs to happen moving forward for Ethiopia to, sustain double digits growth beyond 2026? What is it that the country needs to do to sustain this growth?
Well, the first thing is, of course, the peace issue. The Ethiopian government is, they have a national dialogue commission which is going around the country, talking to different people, tribes, ethnic groups, and the elite. We have also peace committees that have been formed by the government. So definitely the government must look into what else can be done in terms of peace, because those regions that the three regions I mentioned are more than half the population, and therefore the productivity in this area could be dented very much if peace is not there. The second thing is illicit financial flows. There is a recent global financial integrity report has shown, including South Africa and Nigeria, there is huge amount of money leaving the continent. Ethiopia in the last 10 years has lost more than $26 billion which is equivalent to national debt that we have in terms of foreign debt. So that's another thing. The other challenge, of course, is the issue of corruption in the government. The Auditor General of the country, in a report to the House of Representatives, she says that the billions of dollars are left unaccounted every year. And therefore, it's very important for the government to look into corruption. And the third thing is illicit trade. China produces for 1.4 billion of its citizens,
right,
and the rest of the world. So in terms of economic scale, whatever comes in illicit trade through contraband into Africa is much cheaper than what is produced locally. So local manufacturers are shutting down their factories because of this. And therefore, we have, for the African continental free trade area now, there will be an encouragement for African manufacturers to be able to export elsewhere. But definitely this is going to be still a challenge. And these are the 4 areas that I think Ethiopia must prepare. And the government can do it, literally overnight. I believe government officials must be involved in this illicit undertakings.
Right.
Because it's happening in broad daylight. And therefore, Ethiopia is not known for issues like corruption and illicit trade and financing until recently, but now it's flourishing. And I think it's a combination of different factors that are happening around the world. So the government can do this, and I'm sure the government is committed to doing this, because it's the digital transformation is taking place to ensure that human participation in most of these issues are going to be curtailed.
Yeah. Dr. Constantino Behutesfa, thank you so very much for indeed making the time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Right, there you have it. I would like to apologize to our listeners. That was not the best line, but we got the gist of what he was talking about. He's saying that the issues around corruption and illicit financial flows, those are some of the things that they need to tackle to sustain the growth of Ethiopia, beyond 2026. And that conversation brings us to exactly 16:23 Central African Time.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective. 60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
On to this story now. 3 subsidiaries of the Dangote Group have secured expanded gas supply agreements with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, that is NNPC units, in a move aligned with Nigeria's Gas Master Plan 2026. The deal were announced in Abuja at the launch of the plan and are expected to support industrial expansion, boost gas utilization, and advance cleaner energy use across the sector. For more on this, we are now joined on the line by Senior International Trade Consultant Collins Negwe. Collins, thank you so very much for indeed making the time. Why are these gas agreements important for Nigeria's economy?
This is not just an energy deal, as most have called it. It is an industrialization deal, if you ask me. These enhanced gas supply agreements between the Dangote Group and Nigerian National Petroleum Company, which is Nigeria's, national company on petroleum, ensure stable and predictable energy for large-scale manufacturing. We're talking of refining, fertilizer, cement, and petrochemicals. That matters because energy reliability is one of the biggest bottlenecks to Nigeria's productive economy, and it has been so for quite a long time. When major industries can count on gas, they produce more, import less, export more, and create stronger local value chains. It also means Nigeria begins to monetize gas domestically rather than exporting them, raw molecules alone. That shift keeps more value inside the national economy, support GDP growth, strengthens foreign exchange earnings, and improve fiscal stability. In simple terms, gas security equals economic security. There are no two ways around it.
Nekwe, then the question is, what does this mean for industrial growth and energy costs? As you just mentioned, that energy is a challenge in Nigeria, and even during the years of NEPA, it has been quite challenging for many entrepreneurs. But then the challenge is, what does this mean for industrial growth and energy costs?
Well, reliable energy is the cheapest industrial policy any country can adopt. With a short gas supply, industries can operate at higher capacity, reduce downtime, and shift away from expensive diesel and heavy fuel oil. Over time, this lowers production costs, improves competitiveness, and allows Nigerian manufacturers to price their goods more attractively at home and abroad. Talking of competitiveness, the knock-on effect is faster industrial expansion, more jobs, stronger supply chains, and higher oil exports. Lower energy risk today actually becomes higher industrial growth tomorrow. That's the bottom line.
Would you say then that gas is central to Nigeria's cleaner energy transition, and why is that?
Well, absolutely it is. Nigeria's transition must be realistic before it can be radical. Gas burns cleaner than coal, diesel, or fuel oil, producing fewer, particulates and lower carbon emissions. For an economy that still needs rapid industrial growth, gas provides a practical bridge between today's fossil-heavy mix and tomorrow's renewable future. It allows Nigeria to cut emissions while expanding, electricity and industrial output.
Right.
By doing that, avoiding the false choice between development and climate responsibility.
And could this attract more private sector investment into the gas sector, in your view?
Well, obviously, because capital follows certainty, not slogans. What we've had all the while is slogans. When investors see firm off-take agreements, coordinated policy, as we have seen this time, and visible execution, risk perceptions fall drastically. These deals signal that Nigeria is serious about building a commercial gas economy, not just talking about it. That credibility can unlock investment across, upstream production, midstream pipelines and processing plants and downstream industrial users. Predictability attracts capital, and capital is what builds sectors.
Collins Nekwe, Senior International Trade Consultant, thank you so very much for indeed making the time.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Innocent, for having me.
All right, there you have it. He believes that this could attract more investment, private sector investment into the gas sector. It's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out, because they're calling it, it's saying that it's aligned with Nigeria's Gas Master Plan 2026. All right, for now, let's look at what's happening with the worlds of markets indicators with Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Innocent. Good afternoon. $1 is trading at 16 Rand 12 in South Africa, Botswana 13 Pula 03, Namibia 16 Namibian dollars 12, Zambia 19 kwacha 67. Kenya, the dollar is 128 shilling 65. Ethiopia 155 birr 83. Uganda 3,000 shilling 557. Tanzania 2,000 shilling 657. $1 in Nigeria is 1,000 naira 394. Egypt, the dollar is 47 Egyptian pounds 07. Tunisia 2 dinar 85. Algeria 128 dinar 88. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 02. Angola 912 kwanza. The Congolese franc is at 2,219 to the US dollar. Commodities, gold is trading at $4,923. Platinum at $2,026 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $66.72 a barrel. That is all from me. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Chandu. We're hearing that Karim Benzema is not happy with his current club. It has to do with money. Let's get more from Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Innocent. A very good afternoon from the Sports Desk. Indeed, as our leading story this hour, Karim Benzema has joined Al Hilal. The Saudi Pro League leaders announced on Monday. It was on deadline day, by the way, following the termination of his other contract with Al Ittihad. So local media reported that the move to Al Hilal came after Benzema rejected an offer to extend his contract with Al Ittihad, considering it as disrespectful. So after the deal was held up by the Saudi Ministry of Sports and Public Investment Fund on Monday, issues were then resolved on deadline day, and the 38-year-old will now get his wish to change the Saudi club. Now, the former France striker had missed the team's previous 2 league matches. Al Hilal signed French star Karim Benzema on as a free transfer to represent the football team for 1.5 years. So the Al Ittihad deal from the Saudi Pro League, which handles the contracts for main players in the PIF-owned clubs, would then effectively have seen Benzema play for free. That's according to sources. Instead, the PIF then orchestrated a move to rivals Al Hilal for the 2023 Ballon d'Or winner, which then angered Cristiano Ronaldo, according to sources. Now, the Portugal star refused to play for Al Nassr on Monday in protest. Ronaldo considered that the PIF was not investing enough in Al Nassr and instead was giving an advantage to Al Ittihad. Benzema, who had offers from European clubs as well, wanted to stay in Saudi Arabia, partly because his image right contract there is there until 2030. Meanwhile, Youssef An-Nesyri, the Moroccan as well as Fenerbahce forward, will replace him in Jeddah, while former Chelsea midfielder N'Golo Kante, 34 years of age, will leave Al Ittihad to join Fenerbahce and has already left them during the transfer window. Atletico Madrid have now signed Nigerian forward Ademola Lookman from Atalanta in a deal worth $40 million. Lookman will be the first English-born player to have played in the Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A, as well as the La Liga. The London-born 28-year-old has played in Serie A since 2022, scoring 55 times and also making 27 assists following a move from Bundesliga club RB Leipzig. So back in 2024, he was named African Footballer of the Year and was also the only African player on the men's Ballon d'Or shortlist that year, finishing in 14th position. Madrid announced that they had agreed also a deal with Atalanta on Monday before confirming that Lookman has signed until June of 2030 on transfer day. Back home now, contrary to his previous statements, South Africa's Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, says Formula One will not be coming to South Africa anytime soon. As it stands, there are 24 races for the upcoming 2026 season, the same number as it was last Yeah. Now, the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit in Midrand right here in South Africa has already begun a costly process to upgrade its track. It is a little more complicated than simply having a venue that can host a Formula One event. So those upgrades will cost between 5 million as well as 10 million US dollars. The proposed FIA Grade 1 upgrade, which notably requires no change to the circuit layout, focuses on enhancing runoff areas, barrier systems, debris fencing, curbs as well as drainage. Let's hear from Minister Gayton McKenzie on how he explains how, as South Africa, they underestimated the costs of hosting a Formula One Grand Prix race.
But next year, definitely not, because we have underestimated what is required to host the F1 event. But F1 has held our hand, and so has now, guys. This. So now what we're doing is we've got the experts, and we're putting together a bid that we give them an offer they can't refuse.
And finally, the NFL will make its France debut as part of a record 9 international games in 2026. Now, on the opening day of the Super Bowl week, the NFL also announced multi-year partnerships to return to Mexico and Spain. But there will be no immediate return to Ireland after Dublin staged its first game in September. Now, the Paris Stade de France will welcome the NFL next season, with the New Orleans Saints confirmed as one of the participating teams for that game. The date has yet to be confirmed as well. Mexico, meanwhile, has not staged an NFL game since 2022 because of the Estadio Azteca was being renovated for the Summer World Cup that is set to be hosted in June and July of this year. But the league has agreed now to play there in each of the next 3 seasons. Spain's first game was played at the Santiago Bernabeu in November, and the NFL has now made a multi-year commitment to play in Madrid. That concludes your sports news this afternoon on Channel Africa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Thank you so much for staying with us. The time is exactly 16:38 Central African Time. Let's look at this story now. A celebration of a robust partnership between Uber Eats and the Gauteng Department of Economic Development, which sought to uplift township-based entrepreneurs through digital transformation, took place in South Africa's township of Soweto earlier today. The partnership, or should I say the public-private partnership collaboration, has seen the digitization of more than 2,000 businesses and the creation of nearly 8,000 income-earning opportunities. Nhlanhla Mahlangu has the details.
In 2023, Uber Eats signed a 3-year partnership with the Gauteng Department of Economic Development to support the implementation of the Township Development Act by bringing township businesses into the digital economy. The agreement focused on digitizing township restaurants and food businesses, creating earning opportunities for delivery people and expanding access to customers beyond traditional walk-in trade. Through the partnership, more than 2,000 township merchants have signed up to use the Uber Eats platform and have been provided support with training tools and visibility to help them grow. Speaking at the event, the MEC for Economic Development in Gauteng, Lebogang Maile, reflected on the significance of this milestone.
The work does not end here. There is still more to do and more opportunity ahead. Today, however, we take a moment to celebrate the entrepreneurs who continue to build, the delivery partners who keep moving, and the partnership that proves that inclusive economic growth is achievable when we work together.
Nzwaki Ntsibanyoni, General Manager for Uber Eats in Sub-Saharan Africa, says the partnership has helped address challenges while offering valuable lessons on how inclusive growth can be supported through collaboration and digitization.
So the biggest challenges were confidence, and understandably so, digital familiarity and infrastructure constraints. That is why onboarding, training, and hands-on support were just as important as technology itself. This is just not a brand-based model. It is participation in a live marketplace. As long as merchants meet demand and delivery networks remain active, the income opportunities are self-sustaining.
The celebration also honored outstanding township merchants and delivery people whose efforts have driven the success of the initiative. Rulani Shibambo Kota King Owner was one of the recipients. He was named the Merchant of the Year.
I'm super happy and excited about this milestone. It really means a lot to me. I mean, because we're in the world of digitalization, everyone is watching, everyone is recognizing us. So it means it's more customers for us, more attention into our business because they can see we've won an award, a Merchant of the Year. It really means a lot.
Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Dlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
60 years of Channel Africa, your trusted voice, your African perspective into the future.
The whole population of Africa is in shock to the depth of its soul.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has been the voice that connects the continent, telling our stories and sharing our vision with the world. This year, we mark 6 decades of broadcast excellence.
60 years of stories, sound, and connection.
6 years of African conversations that matter.
This is 60 years of broadcast excellence.
Rooted in Africa's heartbeat and looking boldly into the future. Join Channel Africa as we celebrate 60 years of broadcasting. Still strong, still vibrant, and still giving you the African perspective.
Channel Africa.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
All right, Mukuru, a financial service platform, says it has helped bridge the gap in the informal sector by enabling informal businesses to send, receive, and store money securely, make payments, and transact across borders without the need for formal bank accounts. Now, the company notes that nearly 70% of Africa's economy still operates informally, with millions of small traders across border merchants and micro entrepreneurs relying heavily on cash due to limited access to traditional banking and digital infrastructure, leaving them exposed to risks such as theft, poor records keeping, and exclusion from formal financial services. Now, to discuss this further, we're joined on the line by the CEO of Mukuru, Andy Jury. Andy, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to Channel Africa.
How's it, Innocent? Thanks very much for having me on your show.
Indeed. How would you describe the scale of the economic impact of Africa's informal sector today, and what are some of the challenges do informal sector traders face in accessing financial services?
I mean, I think you did my job for me in the intro. Our estimate, and it's a mug's game because there's asymmetries of information, is that somewhere between 2/3 and 75% of payments transactions and Africans transact in this informal, over-the-counter, cash-to-cash and unregulated environment. And so because it is informal and there are no records, it's difficult to sort of have an exact measure of that, but it far outweighs or dwarfs the formal financial services ecosystem that we have in Africa. And so, we believe that there's this massive potential for Africa as a whole if you can harness these transactions that are all happening on a daily basis in cash, which means that people have to be there, they have to be involved in the logistics and the delivery of the services, and essentially because it's cash and it happens over the counter, there's never any records, so you're always stuck in the starting blocks. And so Mukuru sits at this intersection of the formal and informal financial services ecosystems. And really what we are trying to do is to take our customers, 95% of whom come to us for the first time have never touched a bank account or a digital financial instrument. And we take them on a journey which requires them to trust our ecosystem, to sign up, and essentially all you need is a mobile phone and some form of ID, either an ID document or a passport. And we will take you on a journey that helps you to send, store, spend, and increasingly lend, where the more you participate, the easier it becomes, the more digital savvy you become, or the more comfortable you becoming with digital products, the cheaper it becomes. And then we can use or empower you to use that data that you build up to then borrow against, to take out insurance products and essentially scale up and use the sort of benefits of the transactions you have to make things cheaper and more efficient. And so there's a massive, massive unlock for not only those people who are transacting in the informal financial services at the moment, but all the businesses, partners, trading people who want to engage with the biggest part of the African economy.
Indeed. And I'm glad that you're talking about the cost of carrying cash around. I mean, there are issues around theft, poor records keeping, and that can really destabilize many entrepreneurs and informal traders. So, Jury, in your view, what are some of the biggest barriers preventing the informal sector traders from really using formal financial services like bank accounts? Are there regulatory challenges in different African countries that limit financial inclusion? What are you seeing on the ground?
There are, to a degree, although Innocent, most regulators are quite keen to formalize informal trade because they benefit from it. It's far easier to regulate it if you know what's going on. Whereas if you are trying to guess at what's happening in an informal environment, it becomes quite challenging. And so from time to time, regulators make choices which raise the barriers to entry. I would say in the environments in which we operate, the sort of formal financial services ecosystem still requires people to have paperwork that quite often they don't have. So imagine you are let's say a Malawian migrant who's arrived in Botswana and you want to get a job, and they say you need proof of a bank account to get the job. But equally so, you can't get the bank account because you don't have proof of employment. And so you are structurally excluded. And so historically, that's excluded a lot of people from participating. And fintechs like ourselves believe that we can solve that problem and take people on a journey. I would also say that quite often in the formal ecosystem, we forget about the informal ecosystem. And so we haven't designed products and services that meet the needs of potential customers that are operating there. And so there's quite often a low trust. And so if you've always transacted in cash, you can see it in front of you, you can count it on a daily basis, you know that it's there. You may not trust a digital financial instrument or storing your money in a wallet in quite the same way. And so we've built field ambassadors who speak the 40 or 50 languages of Africa, who can meet somebody where they're at in a environment that makes them warm and welcoming, teach them, because most of our employees have walked these journeys themselves, and use that sort of person-to-person communication to build trust and to get people over that hurdle of inertia. So we talk about access, trust, and education. If you don't have the access to the infrastructure or the opportunities, that excludes you. If you don't trust the ecosystem, you choose not to. And if you don't have the knowledge of how you can benefit from it, then you potentially, don't use it as much as you could. And if you can address each of those, then, I think we've demonstrated there's a flywheel of opportunity.
Yeah, and I guess this is the future, right? I mean, transacting money, instant payment seamlessly. I mean, for entrepreneurs, this will be a game changer indeed. But talking about being a game changer, how's Mukuru tailoring its services to really meet the needs of informal traders and small scale entrepreneurs, as we have been talking about them? And what are some of the innovations have you introduced to increase access to financial services?
So I think what we try to make fundamental to our business is that we put ourselves in the shoes of our customers. And so we're not trying to design something for a different market set and then trying to make it work for an informal trader or somebody who is very new to the formal financial services ecosystem. We go and spend time with our potential customers, listen to their wants and needs, listen to their challenges, and then try and use our system to design something that works perfectly for them. And so many of our initial customers were trying to send money home as a sort of cross-border money transfer, and there weren't options for them in the formal ecosystem. They had to send their money in taxis. It would take 2 weeks. Sometimes there were lots of charges that needed to be paid along the way. Sometimes the money didn't get there at all. And so using access to simple technology in most of our mobile phones, we were able to ensure that we could get the money to its intended destination instantly. And so making sure that things are instant, that they're affordable, that they're secure, that there's an audit record so you know where the money is if there's a challenge, and then building out the infrastructure on either sides of any payment transaction, which means that you can choose whether you want to start out paying in cash, whether you want to pay from a bank account, whether you want to pay from a wallet or a digital store of value. And so I think we've created a lot of optionality for our customers. And also by being a single technology platform across 13 territories in Africa, you can be in Cape Town or Lilongwe or Nairobi, and it works off the same tech system. So it means that the money invariably arrives there instantly. So if you are a trader in Zambia who has typically traded with somebody in Malawi, quite often you would have had to get into a taxi, take 3 or 4 days off work, cross the border, go and haggle, trade, come back. And that takes nearly a week out of your productive capacity in a month. Whereas if you are comfortable using Makuru or some of those other systems, it happens instantaneously. Somebody else can do the logistics for you, and you can put all that time back into farming or fishing or building or creating things. And so it's an amazing flywheel that means it's cheaper to operate. People end up with more money in their back pocket that they can then reinvest or use for the things that are important to them.
Andy Jury, CEO of Mukuru, thank you so very much for talking to us. We really appreciate you making the time.
Sure, great to chat.
All right, there you have it. That conversation brings us to exactly 16:52 Central African time.
Be inspired. Stay informed. Channel Africa, the beauty of life. Now available anytime, anywhere with our new app. Keep Africa in your hands. Connect to our website for all your news, sports, and cultural updates. channelafrica.co.za.
Up next is Vood Afrique with Joël. A very good afternoon to you, colleague. What can you expect?
Bon après-midi à toi aussi, Innocent. Merci. Bonjour à tous les auditeurs de Channel Africa sur Vood Afrique. Tout à l'heure, nous parlerons de la Guinée-Bissau. Les deux principaux opposants rejettent l'offre du pouvoir militaire de prendre part au gouvernement. Et nous parlerons également de la formation d'un gouvernement de 20 ministres en Guinée, quelques semaines après l'investiture du général Mamadi Doumbouya. Et en deuxième partie en sport avec Jolino Songo, il sera notamment question du football. La Ligue des Champions, c'est Maniema Union vs Wydad Casablanca. C'est tout à l'heure sur Vue d'Afrique. Merci de rester connecté. Merci Innocent.
All right, we'll surely be listening. She's up next with Vood Afrique.
Across Africa, communities rise with the promise of clean water and clean sanitation. The African Union's 2026 theme calls us to action.
It's about mobilizing real commitments, securing climate-resilient water and sanitation projects, and ensuring that water becomes a driver of sustainable development and prosperity across the continent.
A landmark moment, not only for Africa, but for the global movement for access to safe water for all.
Assuring sustainable water availability for every home, every village, every nation. This is the Africa we want.
Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa in business on Channel Africa.
Now, South Africa's housing crisis, climate vulnerability and rapid urbanization are under the spotlight as the IBT Presidential Summit gets underway. The summit, held ahead of the State of the Nation address, is focusing on innovation building technologies as a way to deliver faster, safer and climate-resilient human settlements. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered the keynote address on the first day of the summit. Our reporter Lebohang Mabange attended the event and had the story. All right, I'm told that the story is not yet ready. We will definitely revisit that story. We now know that ahead of the next week's annual mining endeavor taking place in Cape Town, in this week's Standard Bank slot, we preview this event that has cemented itself in the continent's mining calendar, facilitating critical discussions and innovation in this industry. We also delve further into the mining value chains and artisanal operations, as well as the sector's invisible growth engine. Abe Adres, head of mining at Business and Commercial Banking Standard Bank South Africa, now joins us on the line. Abe, good afternoon and welcome to Channel Africa.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me clear?
Yeah, thank you so much for making the time. Mining has long been a cornerstone of South Africa's economy. In your view, how is the role of mining evolving in today's economic landscape? And I'm asking because many people have been, saying that, there's a general narrative out there that says that mining, it seems as though, is a sunset industry. How do you see the landscape of mining in the country?
Indeed, thanks a lot for having me. Indeed, mining has evolved throughout the years, and I think the key driver there that has really shaped mining to the current days is the ESG model and the sustainable mining that is really punting in moving away from, mining unsustainably within the ground, within the area. So it has evolved to an extent that we refocus the critical minerals, or the minerals that were mined that were not grouped as critical, and refocus them and repurpose them and call them critical minerals. So the future is still very bright within the very mining. It has been the driver of the economy for quite some time, and it remains. And with the critical minerals and the rare earth minerals, the future is still in the same way that you use the cornerstone. Will remain the cornerstone of the economy of the world, in fact.
And Africa holds significant reserves of critical minerals. In your view, Abe, how can the continent move from being a resource supplier to building resilient value chain added supply chains? Because also there's that narrative that Africa is not a partner in this minerals, is just a producer. So how do we balance that narrative?
There are key differentiators like electricity that really puts mining to the background, and that makes mining to be the supplier and lose out on the beneficiation piece. You would understand in the South African context that electricity is quite expensive. If you go across Africa, the roads and infrastructure, there is still a bit of a challenge. That on its own, it makes it mining to be an exporter, because we've been in the operations and making sure that we mine. But I guess the infrastructure piece has been neglected quite a few. If there's anything within the value chain of mining that can make mining to be very sustainable to the future, is to make sure that the infrastructure is ready, the roads are okay, and the political will also is still key in making sure that the policies are really in line in making sure that the development in the whole value chain of mining and the miners, get exploited to their core. Thanks a lot.
All right, Abe Andries, head of mining at Business and Commercial Banking, Standard Bank South Africa. Thank you so very much for indeed making the time. It's going to be interesting to see how the mining endeavor plays out. It's in a few weeks' time. I'll be in Cape Town. Of course, I'll be speaking to industry leaders about the mining sector. Well, that's my lot on this episode of Africa in Business. From myself, Innocent Semosa, on behalf of the team, it's goodbye and God bless.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at